Think about what, but you're thinking, you're stepping outside of the box, and you're thinking about what it is you would love to do to really express the freer you. It might not be where you are right now, but Wallace Wattles, who I'm going to quote, because I love his book, deals with that also in that book, which we're going to quote in a minute. But what joy would you like to experience? If you really have no idea, then make it up. Remember, fake it till you make it. Within you, something knows. Each one of us has a divine urge, a divine pull. It's within each one of us, and each one of us knows that which makes us feel really joyful, free, and expansive. Focus on that. Focus on that. Start journaling. Ernest Holmes once wrote, consciousness must be conscious of something. If we don't have anything that we're conscious of, the law is just going to give us back more of that confusion and that stagnation. So consciousness, or awareness, must be conscious of something. So this week, remember, inspiration without action. Inspiration without action is merely entertainment. Don't you love that? Inspiration without action is merely entertainment. And entertainment's fine unless you really want to manifest your life as a work of art and take this grand experiment. Experiment with it. This is all an experiment. And see what happens. See if that shift of God expressing through you is taking place. So the second part of, the second idea that I want to take from that writing is, he will put some things behind. And the rest of that was, remember, past that invisible boundary, from Pharaoh's book. And in this work, on which we are remembering and embarking on this journey to burst forth into the future, there is really only one thing, there really is only one thing to put behind us. Put behind us the lack, the limitation. Put behind us the fear that holds us from expressing the greater I am that is within each and every one of us. Sometimes we cannot see exactly what it is that what it's going to show up as, the demonstration, but we know the feeling. We know that which brings us joy, that which brings us inspiration, that which we really just enjoy being in. That's what you want to impress upon the law, that kind of a condition. So Wallace Wattles, in that great book that I talked about, and I've used it in my Law of Attraction class years ago, actually, The Science of Getting Rich, and I've told this in our first prosperity class, was the book that Rhonda Burns first read. Rhonda Burns is the author of The Secret. So that was the book that started her on her journey. This is really a little book that you need to study, not just read, but study, because it's got everything in it. So he writes, to think according to appearances is easy. To think truth regardless of appearances is laborious and requires the expenditure of more power than any other work you may be called upon to perform. There is no labor, he writes, from which most people shrink, as they do from that of sustained and consecutive thought. To think health when surrounded by the appearance of disease, or to think riches when in the midst of appearance of poverty, requires power. But the one, he says, who acquires this power becomes a mastermind. This person can conquer fate. This person can have what he wants. So if you, like I said, if you don't have that book, get that book, The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace Wattles. To think health when surrounded by the appearance of disease, or to think riches when in the midst of the appearances of poverty requires power, requires a tremendous mastermind. And that is what we're being called to step forward and really get our mind focused on conquering fate. Fate doesn't have to hold us back. We are powerful co-creators. So the person can have what he wants. And if we see this, we see some people that look like they can just create anything. We might know those people, and no matter what, they create. And then we read about them. People that have created in spite of the conditions that look like failure, that look like obstacles. They overcome the obstacles because they're focused on the idea of what they desire clearly and strongly. So that is what Wallace Wattles is encouraging us to do, and we can do it. If we just get out of our own way, put that fear, that ego-driven mind behind us. Put it behind us. So how do we do this? How do we think? Well, how do you think we do this? How do you think we do this?
Conscious visualization.
By our own thinking. It is as simple and it's all conscious creation, but it starts with, everything starts with a thought. By our thinking. Thinking is what empowers us to create our life. Thinking. Jesus in the desert, being tempted by Satan. And for us, Satan represents lack and limitation, negativity. So he said, "Get thee behind me, Satan." Did he not?
Yes.
It's written. But it must be true. It has to be true. I read it in a book. So we can do the same thing. Get behind me, fear. Get behind me, old ways of thinking, lack and limitation. Get thee behind me. So the true me can step forward and express myself. And Wallace Wattles also writes, if you fix upon, now remember, Wallace Wattles wrote this book in 1910, so we're now officially over 100 years ago. If you fix upon your consciousness the fact that the desire you feel for possession of riches is one with the desire of omnipotence for more complete expression, your faith becomes invincible. I love this book.
Say that again.
Okay? If you fix your consciousness, and the book is great, get the book. If you fix your consciousness, okay? If you fix upon your consciousness the fact that the desire you feel for possession of riches is one with the desire of the omnipotence, which is the all-powerful, okay, nature of God, for more complete expression. Focus on that, connect with that. But let me go into finish his reading. Your faith becomes invincible. God, the one substance, is trying to live and do and enjoy through humanity. Holmes talks about that. He is saying, I want hands to build wonderful structures, to play divine harmonies, to paint glorious pictures. I want feet to run my errands, eyes to see my beauty, tongues to tell the mighty truth and sing marvelous songs. So creation, as we create through our thoughts, is the highest expression of God. God in us, as us, through us. We are expressing God when we're in that high, like the music, painting. Creating our life is a work of art. Let's make it beautiful, right? We're expressing God. We don't do this alone. That power moves through us. And it always, remember last week, the grace of God, it is gracing us with all the tools we could possibly need. It's all there already. It's just for us to look and to be aware of it. The third idea from Thoreau's writing. He will pass an invisible boundary. New, universal, more liberal laws will begin to establish themselves around and within him, or the old law will be expanded and interpreted in his favor in a more liberal sense. So we don't mean that the laws are liberal or structured. The laws are immutable. They work the same for everyone. But it would seem that way because when we up-level our consciousness, the law responds to us a whole lot easier and more expansively. Because we've aligned ourselves with a higher power, aligning ourselves with a higher power, knowing that God is creating through us, with us, for us, always. It wants to express itself through us. That's pretty cool. We have begun to work more in harmony with that law that already exists. So we are consciously knowing there's a thinking substance that is responding to our thought. And Ernest Holmes writes in Love and War, and you see, he was influenced by many different people, and obviously Wallace Wattles was one of them. He writes, "We are surrounded by a thinking stuff, which permeates all the inner spaces of the universe. It is the original. It was, is, and always shall be." According to Wallace Wattles, he says, there is a thinking stuff from which all things are made, and which in its original state permeates, penetrates, and fills the interspaces of the universe. A thought in this substance produces the thing that is imaged by the thought. We can form things in our thought by impressing our thought upon this formless substance, he says. We can cause the thing we think about to be created. That is conscious thinking. Are we consciously thinking, or are we thinking by default, the old way? And since I've been doing this work, I've had some powerful, fast manifestations, experiences, really working with this thinking stuff and knowing that this is the law, this is God. Because the law is all part of God. There's nothing outside of this infinite oneness. And so using the law constructively, which is always going to be a little bit of a challenge, when stuff comes up, it's challenging, but to continuously turn back and align ourselves with this thinking stuff, this formless intelligence, we are powerfully creating lives that are expansive. Because I am consciously using this creative process, which we really got into in great depth in the foundation class about this creative process. And that's what the whole basis of science of mind, of new thought, and of affirmative prayer is anchored in, this creative process. And the perfect example is the seed that goes into the soil that produces the effect. It's the simplest way for our human minds to understand the creative process. So it is our thought that goes into this law, the substance, that produces our experience. So the seed is, if you plant a specific seed into the soil, you will get a specific plant. If you plant a specific specificity, if you plant a specific thought into the substance of law, you will get a specific experience. Guaranteed. So what does Holmes say all the time? Thoughts are things. Change your thinking. Change your life. So, are you willing to embark on this grand experiment?
Oh, yeah.
This month? Oh, yeah. It's an experiment that can only bring unfolding of more clarity, maybe, in our thinking of what it is we desire to experience in our lives. Expansion. This is the experiment of expansion. So, to sum up the 3 ideas from Thoreau's quote, the one quote, which is so rich. That quote is so rich. I learned this, he writes, at least by my experiment, that if one advances confidently in the direction of his dreams, so that's know and have a vision of what it is you would like to manifest, he will put some things behind him, like those conditions, those effects that we might not want to experience, put them aside, walk confidently ahead. Third, and he will pass an invisible boundary. New, universal, and more liberal laws will begin to establish themselves around and within him, or the old laws will be expanded and interpreted in his favor in a more liberal sense. Or so it will seem as we become more conscious of what it is that we are thinking. What are we thinking? Be aware of that. And so this whole month, we're going to unwrap this reading by Thoreau, just this one reading, and allow it to expand our thinking, to expand our experiences, so that we can live in our true essence of freedom, of a fuller, more productive, loving, joyful life. And I've officially named this month the Manifesting Month. Manifesting Month. The month of October at Joyful Gathering Spiritual Center will be the Manifesting Month, where we will take this grand experiment, this adventure together. Because you can't get something new unless you change the way you've been thinking. So let's think a higher thought and let's get clarity. So in those 4 areas, let's really sit down, think about it, write, meditate, because that's a great way to get in touch with the divine. Meditate, and then just get a picture of what you want to create, and you will create it. And so it is.